Scott here again, working on my 2014 Subaru Outback. This time the passenger side low beam bulb has burned out. Most of the online videos I've seen recommend coming in from the wheel well, and that's a good way to do it too, and that's probably the only way to do it on the driver's side, but we're going to try it from the top on the passenger side. So first thing we need to do is remove the air scoop. Mosquitoes are bad out here tonight. So you undo these fasteners, quarter turn with a screwdriver, and then you can pull them up and release these clips. There's two of them. Then the air scoop just lifts right out. Set that aside, and the next thing is you get a small screwdriver like this size, and you separate the connector from the air intake, the filter box. And you lift up, and then you can pull that out. You have to release that first. Use a screwdriver to loosen this hose clamp, and then you can pull that off to the side. And I had to remove two 10mm fasteners. One was this 10mm bolt, which is down there. I got it with this wrench. And the other was 10mm nut, which goes on this when that's actually in position up there. So just an open end 10mm, got that. Once you've done that, you can separate the air cleaner. You can pull this hose back, and you can remove this section. The only thing holding it now is a clip for this harness. You can get that with a needle nose, where you just kind of squeeze things together, and then it comes right out, and you can remove this. Then you can remove the air filter. So it's a good time to change the filter if you haven't done that in a while. Next thing is to move this out of the way. So I just pushed it up here and got a hook sort of hold it against these brake lines. Obviously you don't want to put any force on that. And that's out of the way enough. So what you're after is to get this end cap on the light assembly. And I was not able to just push this thing to rotate it. It goes counterclockwise. So the way I loosened it, I took a punch and a small hammer, very gently. I put it near the end, just gave it a few taps until it started to rotate. Then I finished it up by hand. Just push down, and then it'll pull back. And then you have to reach around in an awkward place to get this from behind. But you can, and I'm probably blocking the camera, but you can get the thing loose and then pull it out. Keep in mind that this goes like, it's in approximately that orientation when it's back in. So you set that aside. There's a connector back there, which is hard to see, on the back of the bulb. So you reach in and pull that off. It's just a press-on connector. There's no locks on it. And then it's got the usual way of mechanical clip that holds the bulb in. So you can get that just by pushing and sliding it off to the side. Then at that point, you can grab by the connector pins and pull your bulb out. Try not to touch the end of the bulb. So now you have to reverse the process. For that, you want to put on gloves because you don't want any chance of touching that bulb. If you touch the quartz envelope of these automotive bulbs, it causes localized heating because the filaments get very hot, and that can cause the the enclosure to fail. So put on some simple gloves. You get your new bulb. Since I have gloves on, I can pull it out of the package safely, even though I'm touching the thing. There's a keyway on this, so you have to put it back in the same orientation it came out. So you just slip it in the same place, push that into place, and then it's a little tricky, but you have to pivot that spring clip back in order to hold the bulb in. You can't pivot it until you're sure you're in the right orientation. It's taking a little longer than I thought here, but I was a little off, that's why. I can see that now. It pays to have a decent light so you can see what you're doing. There. So now that's in. And then you can put the connector back on. There are other videos that have a better view of what the back of the bulb looks like, but it's up to you if you want to check that out. I'm going to just make sure that this bulb lights up before I go any further, because otherwise the job is no good. So the bulb worked. Glad of that. So the next step is putting this thing back on. This is kind of a tricky thing where you have to hand it off from one hand to the other. And I'm actually going to take the gloves off so I have a better feel for this. Before I put this back on, I didn't show this, but I put a little silicone grease on that gasket. And I inspect it too, because if it's cracked, you might want to replace it. So remember, this is the orientation. This large thing faces towards the center of the vehicle. So you kind of pass it from one hand to the other, back through this crazy opening in the frame of the vehicle. And you do have to be a little bit of a contortionist, I'm sorry to say, on this job. And perhaps there's less of that if you're doing it from underneath. But, and this thing is also keyed. So when you get it back, you kind of have to do it a little by feel. Once you're in the slots, then you push on the back while you rotate clockwise. And that's locked in now. And the next step is basically just to kind of reverse the assembly process of getting all these things back where they belong. And I think there's no point in showing that, because the hard part is dealing with the bulb itself.